Okay. No. I think it's time to watch this thing. Oh, fuck. What? Is it because of Trump? I don't really get it. Also, this guy hates everything. This guy is a hater. He literally hates on everything. And I don't think the Undertale Phantom of Jesus creature is that bad, actually. These are not your enemies, what are you on? They never said that. That's literally the first thing they said, that they don't hate gays. That's the first freaking thing. That's the first line, bruh. Okay. Now, I've got to watch this video. And people say it is god awful. It is really, really bad. If it's that bad, I think I will make a video on it. Just debunking all of its claims. And I hope I don't get too angry watching this. Okay.
Hey everybody, it's a
Oh, fuck.
As you might have guessed, this video is going to have
it was so loud.
Undertale and Undertale Yellow. You haven't played either of these games yet, and you want to experience them for the first time on your own, I highly recommend you do so, especially considering
how long does this last?
I'll have the link in the description. Also, don't be alarmed by the
oh god.
I've intentionally made sure that it can be enjoyed to the fullest extent as a purely
okay.
If you want to be doing something else while you listen, I implore you to do so.
Oh, okay, fine. That's alright. That's alright.
All you'd be missing is some gameplay and maybe some subtitles for dialogue, and that's about it. I'll try to make chapters so that if you need to leave and come back later, it's easy to do so. I hope you enjoy.
I hope I enjoy as well.
Fan content of something I enjoy that is so high quality that it makes me reconsider the quality of the original content. This was the position.
Bro, what? Yeah, this guy. Yeah, look at his gay furry. Look, because I keep saying Undertale yellow glazers are all gay furries. See? Every Undertale yellow glazer is a gay furry. I always say every Undertale yellow glazer is a gay furry. Because every Undertale yellow glazer is a gay furry. See? I'm right. I'm honestly 100% right.
The genocide room. Without going into too much detail, for now, I can say with certainty that, for the most part, Yellow and Classic are pretty evenly made for their respective truths.
Well, I guess.
Yellow does a great job of feeling authentically Undertale and tells a prequel story so compelling that I wish all of the fallen children had their own story in a similar vein and with similar dedication to telling a quality, meaningful story through the medium of video games in as creative a way as the game it was based on. It wasn't until I played Yellow's genocide run that I suddenly realized something I had never really considered in the many hours.
What did you realize, buddy?
Undertale's genocide run is bad.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Flawed, but actively poor. Story, entertain the player, and make the player feel anything at all. And this revelation only came.
I wonder what his points are going to be.
Now, I understand such an immediately polarized view of Undertale might elicit negative reactions from you all, ranging from I already thought Undertale was garbage, its genocide run included, to Undertale's genocide run is peak, and you're just bad because you can't fight Sans. It's really hard to discuss a cultural landmark like Undertale without the presence, or at least the assumption of the presence, of bias.
Dude, the video hasn't even gotten bad yet.
Undertale's genocide run is bad, is too sensational for you. A better way to phrase it might be, Undertale's genocide run is a product of its time.
Derogatory. Yeah, this is the title.
However you want to interpret my point is this.
Is there better quality? No, this is bad. No.
Genocide Run wanted to do, but actually accomplished.
What? Wait, what did you say?
Everything that Undertale's Genocide Run wanted to do, but actually accomplished. And to prove my point, let's
Okay, try to prove your point.
the elements of each. Let's begin with the most boring aspect of these games, in my opinion. But the aspect that
What?
is most
I don't
useful
give a
is
fuck.
play the Genocide Run.
Oh my god. Camera, when does it get good?
For the maybe 10
Camera,
who did not heed my
when does it get good? Video.
Every zone has a set number of encounters to kill. Every time you kill an encounter, you gain EXP.
Yeah.
After getting enough EXP, your LV increases. When we talk about the story, the purpose of spelling those letters out loud will make sense. In a Genocide Run, you cannot move on to the next zone until you have already killed every single encounter in that zone, and then the boss.
Enter the boss, yes.
After enough killed monsters, saving and healing at the save points will tell you how many more monsters remain before you wiped out the zone. If it sounds very straightforward, that's because it is. It's
it is.
Built to parody the gameplay loop of RPGs like
Dude, how can you not?
Of course, Earthbound.
It didn't even really start yet.
By limiting the number of encounters,
Justifying the cooled. Oh my god. Why does it last so much?
Which plays into how the gameplay in general is the narrative, and for that matter, the entire premise of the game, because it contextualizes what grinding actually is. Grinding for better loot isn't just going out into a field and killing imps until you have enough gold to buy a better sword so you can kill imps faster. It's genocide, and eventually when you've reached the limit of encounters, the game gives you encounters just to remind you that you've succeeded in killing everything in the zone, resulting in the realization to the player that their actions have consequences. Or at least, that's probably what Toby Fox intended by this genocide game.
No, that's...
In practice, this process is absolutely not something someone could accidentally do, in large part because it's designed to be absolutely beatable at LV1. So the average player would likely not see any reason to really grind up.
Yeah, that's true.
A little bit. Which is a beautiful gameplay mechanic for a narrative about being kind to people and learning that the differences that we have don't make us enemies, and that even...
I'm already getting fucking frustrated. Oh god. He made the point that... because... Yeah, you're not supposed to do the genocide route. Why?
To fix all of the wrongs of the past. But when that gameplay mechanic is also being used to serve a different narrative in the same exact game about how evil and despicable and horrible you as a person.
Oh my god. Oh, it's starting. It's starting to get ass, finally.
That's not really my main issue. More an observation about how the gameplay loop presents the idea of the genocide from strictly a gameplay perspective. The only reason you would think to kill every single monster is if you knew that doing so gave you a different outcome, as the intentional ominous tone of X left after you've killed like 5 or so monsters would either instantly scare off a new player or a new player who is already intent on grinding to the max level anyway. In the latter case, such a player
they just want to know
the theme that's trying to be presented to them in the genocide run to begin with. But more on that later. My issue is the way this process is carried out. In short, it requires, or at the very least encourages, you to mindlessly march around in circles until you have found it.
It does not encourage you in any way. What do you mean?
Harder to encounter, giving the implication that they're running or perhaps hiding from the player. But in practice, it just makes the genocide run a massive ordeal to complete. In the last cell, Hotland, there's a conveyor belt that you can walk on infinitely to try to encounters with less effort. But it's still 40 monsters with anywhere from...
You can go into core to grind. Why? You can do the...
The only saving grace being that sometimes monsters will double saving you some time.
Yeah, you're not supposed...
I accepted this as both intended and optimal as far as bridging gameplay to narrative is concerned, as I'm sure the defenders of Undertale's genocide run feel as I speak. The idea is that you must be determined to complete the genocide run. An intentional choice that I will go into more depth on when we discuss the narrative. But for now, just accept that word at face value. Determination. firmness of purpose, the unwillingness to give up in the face of any obstacle.
I am already.
Bridges that concept, but it's kind of meaningless to do so if, in communicating that idea that the player is determined, the gameplay also inadvertently, or perhaps intentionally but misguidedly, as I'll discuss later, disconnects the player from the idea that these monsters are people, which is what this system is meant to accomplish in the first place.
Okay,
what also really doesn't help this feeling of disassociation is the fact that you never
it should
feel
be
any
better
more powerful.
now.
Sure, a damage number might go up from 3 to 4 and your LV increases and you might get more health, but so does every encounter in each new zone. Again, a clear parody of the monotonous gameplay loop of conventional RPGs, but it's once again at odds with the other gameplay expectation that my actions as a player have consequences in terms of the humanity of the monsters that I fight. In a conventional RPG like Final Fantasy, early game enemies are both weaker and less imposing visually.
That is
so
true.
Your reward for grinding in those games becomes these enemies are more challenging, more interesting to look at, and drop better stuff, so therefore more fun to fight. And you could sit around in any Final Fantasy game and grind the first room of enemies until you're max level, and indeed, people have, but that isn't fun to do, because the gameplay loop encourages you to find tougher enemies to fight against. Undertale fights with itself in this aspect because it is, at the same time, trying to parody the gameplay loop of conventional RPGs by having you grind enemies over and over, but also trying to convince you not to by making enemies more and more scary.
Things play react when it tells them killing is bad.
The more that you kill them. Then, as a final confounding decision, enemies gain more health and defense proportional to you and the gear that you pick up, with the understanding that you could also be playing a neutral or pacifist route, so that if you suddenly decided to fight on from this point, the enemies would be very, very hard. It sounds like I'm just describing every RPG scaling, but that really isn't the case.
Wait a second.
The key moment in the conventional loop is the growing stronger part, because that is the resolution to the grinding part. Without the numbers reflecting how much stronger I am, it might as well not go up at all. The only reason my LV goes up is to follow the convention in that one specific way, which makes no sense to follow if you aren't going to follow any of the other conventions. Finally, each zone ends in its respective boss, which I will go into more specific detail about each one in the next section. As far as gameplay alone is concerned, this is where Undertale shines, and is what it's best known for. The bullet hell turn-based combat is lauded, and for good reason. Even after all these years, it is still the strongest part of the game, and really the only reason anyone cares about the genocide run.
What?
Not for the promise of some
What do you mean? No, it's because of the death and the and sense, but yeah, it is fight and this dialogue. It's not just because of the combat, bro. What?
One of them actually has a health bar. Every other one dies in one hit, usually as a result of a big number being dealt to them as damage. This only really works if the player is placated by the sight of a big number, but in reality, it's scripted. For every one of these one-hit bosses, you could have the weakest weapon equipped, and it would still do the same.
Yeah? So what?
Strongest.
Dude,
Which begs the question then, why even have better gear, and why even have bosses?
Because you need to grind, maybe? Because you need to grind, and then there is Hotland and Undyne, maybe? Because you need to grind regular monsters? Like,
the boss that does
and then like
bar has such high defense that it might as well be a scripted number of attacks, since no matter which of the two weapons you find in that area you choose to equip, it doesn't change how long the fight will take. In summary, Undertale's gameplay loop seems like it's too concerned with selling the novelty of what's without paying mind to how that novelty conflicts with the story it's trying to tell through its gameplay. The story it wants to tell is, oh, look at how messed up it is that gamers will kill swarms and swarms of monsters and not give it a second thought. When the story the gameplay actually tells is, look at how boring RPGs are when you take away the fun part of grinding.
What? Huh? This point is so weird. That's not true.
Pretty much identical in concept, and even has the same relationship with conventional RPGs.
He's going to glaze Undertale yellow.
It intentionally draws the player's attention to the usual disconnect between killing hordes of mobs and what that action actually means. There are two key differences that Yellow employs which serve to make
I'm already getting
bored. That much more impactful. The first major difference is that each screen in each zone has a set number of encounters. Instead of needing to hunt down 40 monsters over the course of the whole of Hotland, now you only just need to hunt down 4 monsters.
Implication. Oh, here it's. I'm going to rage quit here.
You get the idea. This small change conveys this parody of convention much more eloquently because it actually becomes a hunt. It's no longer just walking around in a circle for 1 to 3 minutes hoping for an
Yet they're trying to do something different.
The "but nobody came" message. And it accomplishes this without sacrificing its precious concept of determination, because you're still reminded of the total numbers of monsters that you need to find, and still have to check every room for about 1 to 3 minutes to make sure that you've killed everything in that room. Number still goes up, and monsters still get killed. There is nothing functionally different about the gameplay aspect other than that the number of monsters is also now limited by room. The second major difference is that you gain new abilities and noticeably stronger weapons as the game continues. Between bosses, who are all full bosses, I should add, none of this one-hit nonsense,
you know what?
There is a gradual, very clear progression
I
of
will
the power
also
you wield. The bullet upgrades actually make a difference in numbers that appears, with passive abilities that actually make you consider whether doing significantly less damage is worth the bonus.
Just so I don't get too bored.
You get about 2/3 into the game.
Okay.
The simple act of making the player feel stronger does so much more to demonstrate what Undertale was trying to communicate, but failed. That you're an unstoppable force that will only get more and more powerful. But at what cost? These are really very small quality of life changes to make to such an established formula, to elicit such a massive change in tone and intention. But they are the changes that need to be made to make Undertale's gameplay work for this particular playstyle.
No, it's...
Finally, we can talk about the fun part, the story.
The story.
Full disclosure, I originally wanted to split this section into 2 parts, being presentation and plot, but it became difficult to separate the two, specifically in Undertale's case. That might have something to do with how Undertale's genocide run is only tangentially related to the main story of Undertale, so the presentation of the run is how the story is told, as opposed to the other 2 endings which tell most of its story by dialogue and leave deeper details to be interacted with by the presentation. By presentation, I'm referring to strictly how the game is presented. The music, the character design, the attack patterns, all these aspects are just as critical to telling the story of Undertale's, and Yellow's, genocide run as anything else. Without any context of what is happening in the actual plot, you should be able to listen to music, watch a fight, or just see a picture of an enemy in any given scenario and have some idea of what is trying to be conveyed in that moment.
Yeah.
I felt this distinction to be necessary to discuss, but doing so separately from the plot ended up being too confusing. There were a lot of holes that didn't get filled until I actually discussed what was happening at that point, and then I had to say a lot of, remember when I talked about the presentation back here? So I've just decided that I'm going to implant where I talk about presentation in the spots that I would have logically talked about them in the course of the narrative. If that makes this next section feel unfocused, it's because it was twice as incomprehensible otherwise.
Tip a lot of hundreds, so what? Oh, it's finally here, the implication. Now it's getting good. It's gonna get really good.
The story
So what the hell keeps...
is as follows. Long ago, there lived humans.
Stop doing that.
They once lived in peace until something caused them to go to war with each other. The humans so brutally overpowered the monsters that they stood no chance and were cast into the underground, where humans put up a barrier to lock the monsters in that can only be broken by the power of 7 human souls. It is many, many years later.
Why would I watch... Why would I watch this video if I didn't know the plot of Undertale?
I described in without knowing anything else about Dragon Quest. Important time. There is also a strong enough expectation that you'll face adversity, because it's established that these monsters would want to take your human soul. The significance of which is explored later, but for now...
You're not funny, Crossbones. You're not funny.
Like a standard run, we wake up in the bed of flowers, make our way into the first hallway, and we are introduced to Flowey, who is intentionally designed to be unassuming and friendly, while his music is both infantile and slightly unsettling, perfectly complementing the uneasy tone of where you are, and ultimately leading to his immediate betrayal of you and the utterance of the most impactful line of dialogue in this run. In this world, it's kill or be killed. Which, as far as I'm concerned, is where the genocide run technically starts. I'll get into why this is later, but for now, just assume that this is where a player might make up their mind about how to traverse the underground. We are then introduced to Toriel, who takes us in and tries to teach us that we can treat monsters with respect and mercy. In a normal run, this is intended to be where we are taught the gimmick mechanic of the game, that being that you're not supposed to kill encounters, but spare them, which is already where the presentation of the genocide run begins to crumble. We are about a minute into this game. We have met two characters so far. One who is very obviously designed to be deceptive and cruel and malicious, and who immediately betrays us and then tells us we should kill everything we see. Another character who is overwhelmingly loving and kind and tells us that we don't need to do that. And just look at the enemies we encounter. Timid frogs, shy fairies, these ugly creatures who get bullied, vegetables. None of these enemies scream, "I am going to fight and kill you." They are beautifully and wonderfully designed to be unassuming and pathetic, which is great for a game about sparing things, but it leaves the fallen child, and by extension the player, no logical reason to kill monsters. The only thing we have to go off of is that monsters are all evil and want to harm us. That one idea was thrown away in the first minute by there being no monster besides Flowey that harbors even the slightest intent to harm us, and yet we are expected to listen to Flowey's advice.
No, we are not expected.
For the sake of this video, we have to
Oh
assume,
god.
for the sake of argument,
He does not understand
we,
shit.
the player, have reasoned that these monsters are just pretending to be pathetic and weak, and actually are very powerful and trying to lure me into a false sense of security or something. The alternative conclusion is, well, we'll get to what the alternative conclusion is by the end of the ruins. Just keep operating for now under the assumption that I'm trying to roleplay and have found a good reason to keep going through with the genocide. Now is also a good time to mention that as you commit to the genocide run, the music begins to distort and become more sinister and warped, until it eventually becomes this horrible droning rumble. This sound that plays is actually Flowey's theme slowed down to an incredible extent. Which
because you're following Flowey's footsteps.
So far our only logical reason to pursue this path. Maybe it's like his words, "kill or be killed," echoing through our minds or something. Additionally, these save points, which when you...
No, that's not the only reason why you would do genocide. Maybe you're just curious.
Once you have killed all the monsters, is replaced with just the word determination. A word which I promise I will elaborate on the significance of, but for now, just keep it in mind. Regardless, when we finally get to Toriel, she does not comment on how empty the ruins have become, and, like in a normal run, brings us to an old, unused kids' room and bakes us a pie. It should be noted that specifically in the genocide run, looking at the toys and stuff in the room forces a perspective of disinterest, saying things like, "I have no interest in these toys whatsoever," and "this painting looks old," or something like that.
No.
Again, as is typical for a normal run, you insist to Toriel that you want to leave this place, but she wants
the dialogue does not change. What do you mean?
Pretty cozy. Once again, I find it hard to imagine a role-playing reason in my role-playing game to harbor any murderous intent towards Toriel, but we'll just have to assume that this fallen child is horribly paranoid and thinks they're in like a Hansel and Gretel situation or something.
Yeah, I know his story about it, how he found out about Undertale.
Obviously unlikely as such a thing is, given how she is presented to be warm, kind, loving, and a mother figure who would never want you to get hurt.
I wonder when he's going to say that.
Basement where she outright tells you that she plans to keep you here and for your own good. That there is no way for her to protect you when you leave this place, and she wants nothing more than for you to be safe with her, just like she tried to do for the 6 other humans that fell down here. And finally, she says that Asgore will kill you if you leave, and that it is best to just avoid violence altogether. In a normal run, this is a pretty compelling conundrum, because on the one hand, you now have a very clear picture of monsters being miserable and sad here underground, and that the only way to save them would be for you to die. Or you could choose to live in this Sisyphusian nightmare where you choose to stay where you're trapped with everyone else. But, unfortunately for a genocide run, none of that matters. And this
it does not matter.
Of us having a reasonable role-playing reason to do a genocide
run. What?
In order for us to be on a genocide run, at least one of these things must be true. 1. We have already played Undertale and just want to see what happens when we kill everybody.
Most reasonable one.
We have understood the intended tone and message of the game from the start and are intentionally acting counter to it for no other reason than to spite it. And 3, We are completely callous to the entire narrative of the game and are playing this game like it's a normal RPG.
I'm a dance moron who didn't get the memo. This was the funniest pair. Cool.
Such as Final Fantasy.
He already does not understand Undertale. He's already showcased that. Okay. Okay.
Which sounds like it could
Okay, I'm
be
gonna.
intentional, like a statement that those who kill mindlessly and are violent are unhinged and deranged, but it shoots itself in the foot by being so blatant. From the very start, this idea chokes on Flowey. If I am not expected and not supposed to care, then why have Flowey tell me kill or be killed in the first place? If I'm supposed to listen to Flowey, why bother letting me talk to Toriel in the first place? Toriel proves to a role-playing player instantly that Flowey's words are lies, born of cruelty.
Yeah.
Even if the player doesn't intend on being a true pacifist, it would be absolutely impossible to walk away from the ruins without at least acknowledging that some monsters are worth sparing, if for no other reason than they were kind to you. So, from the very beginning, to engage with the genocide run as Toby Fox expected me to engage with it, I have to not care about the story at all. None of the story, none of its characters.
Why do you think that's the reason why you would? Because you don't care? No, because you care and you want to play through it because you care. You care about what is next. You care about seeing everything. You care about that. That's why you do it.
People do roleplay like that, but that's not how it's supposed to.
Why are you talking about roleplay, bruh? What do you mean roleplaying?
Play the role of a character that exists within that world. Take a game like Mass Effect. This is a role-playing game where your choices matter. You have an impact on how the character interacts with the world, and you can choose to be evil.
But like,
the core difference is Shepard is a character and has motivations outside of your will as the player. Sure, it's your will as the player that quote-unquote convinces him to do that evil thing, but it is still based on information that you, the player, have witnessed through Shepard's eyes in universe. Like, sure, Shepard sees a guy on the side of a skyscraper and needs to get information from him, and the guy doesn't want to give that information to Shepard. You, as the player, witness through Shepard's eyes that, hey, I can push him off and he'll die, and I won't have to deal with this guy anymore, as indicated by the little renegade thing that pops up in the corner. You, as the player, it is your will that imposes on Shepard to do that evil thing, and therefore, the thing is done, and Shepard is evil as a result. Which leads to some very impactful moments in Mass Effect, where the evil actions that I do suddenly have in-universe consequences, and Shepard as a character reacts and gathers information, which then I, as the player, have to impose will to interact with. Suddenly, there is no disconnect between me and Shepard because the things that we know and the things that we want to happen slowly and slowly become one. Because every choice that I make that turns Shepard more and more evil, if I want him to be evil, I know and want. There might as well be no connection between me and the character. Because, for me to have a connection with the character, I have to look at something the character does and go, yes, I would also react to that information this way, and this is how I would act in that situation. We don't know anything about this fallen child, which is beautiful.
I simply crashed.
I have to be kind because everything is set up for me to be kind and for me to care about things. Because if I was the child in that situation, I would go,
I just crashed.
Toriel's great. She really cares about me, and I'm really sad that I have to fight her in this situation. But if that's not how I'm gonna react, that's the information that's presented to me and to the child. But I don't want to do that.
It crashed again.
Why am I genociding? Because I'm playing a video game. Because I'm not actually engaging with the story, I have to not care. I'm getting heated. That whole rant was not in the script at all. Let's run it back. Start at Flowey, kill or be killed. because everything is set up for me to be kind and for me to care about things. Because if I was the child in that situation, I would go, oh wow, Toriel's great. She really cares about me, and I'm really sad that I have to fight her in this situation. But if that's not how I'm gonna react, that's the information that's presented to me and to the child, but I don't want to do that. I want to genocide. Why am I genociding? Because I'm playing a video game. Because I'm not actually engaging with the story. I have to not care. I'm getting heated. That whole rant was not in the script at all. I talked about this.
You're getting heated?
Conclusion at the very end when I talk about this, but I gotta move. So let's start back. Start at Flowey, kill or be killed, Toriel, hunt down every monster, kill him, determination, back to the basement. We get to Toriel, who at this point we have no love or sympathy for because she's just pixels. She demands that we prove that we're strong enough to face the outside world, and one-hit kill.
Yeah, one-hit kill.
And she says, you really hate me that much. Now I see who I was protecting by keeping you here. Not you, but them.
Yeah, do you have a problem with it?
No, if I cared, this would be an emotionally resonant scene. Here was a woman who wanted nothing more than to love and to care for us. She had her blindness and her flaws, but she loved us, or at the very least could have come to love us. And we killed her when she was at her most vulnerable. This one-hit kill thing only happens during a genocide run.
Yeah.
It's not like I could accidentally do this in a neutral or pacifist run. In order to get that specific interaction, that
the hell is he on about?
That
I don't know.
dripping with emotion, specific
why
interaction.
Why is he saying?
I would have needed
she
to
is
intentionally chose
what? I don't think
to kill published makes no sense to do if I care about the narrative of this story. If I did care enough about this scene to realize how emotionally significant it was, I wouldn't be doing this in the first place. I wouldn't have seen it in the first place. Do you see now how being forced and conditioned to not care about the narrative robbed this moment of its depth? Because I, the player, have already been conditioned to not care. And before you argue something like, well, what if I am just experiencing it just to see what happens, but I'm still appreciating the emotional depth? No, you are still in the camp of not caring about the story because things don't just happen in stories for you to witness them, especially not in video games. They happen so that you can reflect on them, and especially in games like this, where you can change your behavior from that point on. And because the gameplay is so tedious and intentional about how you have to get this particular interaction, there's no way that you would get to this point, see this interaction, and then decide, oh yeah, I don't want to do a genocide run anymore. That was too much for me. Because someone who hasn't made up their mind about going through with an entire genocide run wouldn't get up to the point where they would even started a genocide run. So, after leaving there, feeling nothing, we reunite with Flowey, who is impressed with how evil we are, and calls us soulless, and also drops the hint that he is also without a soul. And then comes...
Yeah! What is that point? I don't... What?
Okay, so
what?
I skipped at the beginning that you get to name your character. A pretty innocuous detail to skip over, but it carries significance.
That, like, oh, you don't feel anything, whatever. Like, I did not feel anything killing T-Ruins monsters, but Toriel, yeah, she's a main character. She's got, like, yeah, she's got a lot of screen time, etc. You can like her. So, like,
at the start, before I'm encouraged to not care. I think the average person would put their name or something they associate with themselves because that's what you do in a video game that asks your name. And this is the first time that someone actually uses that name. Otherwise, they are just find something else to call you, like kid or friend. The genocide run makes extensive use of this name that you entered, for reasons I'll get into towards the end, but it's this first interaction which sows the seeds of what I consider to be the biggest blunder and product of its time derogatory thing that this game does with the story.
Derogatory? What?
Flowey refers to you by your name and says something implying you two have met before and that you two will continue to work together. Flowey then insists to destroy everything in this wretched world. Everyone, everything in these worthless memories. Let's turn them all to dust.
Yeah.
And there, ladies and gentlemen, we've been given our first taste of the edgy creepypasta that is Undertale's genocide run. Yep.
What you mean edgy creepypasta? Are you...
Creepypasta complete
What?
with referring to the player by their name and
Huh?
kill everything just because I can. Horribly shallow, horribly overdone, and so painfully unoriginal compared to how
What?
masterfully the actual game is in terms
What?
of narrative.
What?
But most of all, it confirms what I've asserted already, that we, the player, are encouraged not to care about these monsters or their problems in any way.
No, you're
We're
not
just supposed to kill
encouraged
everything
to.
without thinking, because that's what we, the player, want to do, apparently. Never mind that this is supposed to be...
That's what you are doing? So like...
Child. No. Flowey spells it out for us in some uncertain terms, I suppose, but we are the player, puppeting around this child to kill all these cutesy monsters.
Well,
because
that's
we,
not
the player,
even
are
canon,
evil,
so...
soulless bastards who don't care about the lives of these monsters. We continue to Snowdin. Snowdin is more of the same gameplay-wise. It's nearly identical in process other than the number of enemies you need to kill, as discussed in the gameplay section. The enemies you kill here are no more menacing, but at this point, we don't care about that. And, by the way, I'm sure you're going to get tired of me saying, but we're not supposed to care, or similar things, so anytime
Yeah, I'm
that
already
referring
tired.
to that, I'm just going to say, the implication, used as follows. We can pretty much be certain that every new area in this game will attempt to make us feel sad for killing these friendly, pathetic, and/or kind monsters, but we can't and won't because of the implication.
What
Which is a
implication?
shame, because Snowdin specifically has one or two key differences in exploration in the genocide run that, were it not for the implication, would be chilling. No pun intended. Speaking of puns, it's time for the main guy that everyone knows and loves. Practically the entire reason to even do the genocide run. It's Sans Undertale, and he is not happy that we're doing the genocide run, as he also seems to know that we are up to something. He serves as the second of 3 characters that are capable of breaking the 4th wall in this way, and oh boy, I have a lot to say about him, but let's give him his own section when the time comes. In the meantime, he's
I wonder
presented in a
how good
starkly
his
different way
senses
than-
section will be.
He's very ominous and serious. He does the thing where his eyes go completely black.
What
He
do you
says
mean,
threatening
ominous and
things to us,
serious?
like, you're not gonna like what happens, or
Yeah.
you want an advice
Well,
on
yeah.
fighting my brother? Don't. Things that if you had only played a neutral or pacifist run would be very surprised, but, you know, the implication. Papyrus, on the other hand, does not seem to grasp the gravity of this situation and treats
What?
this as a normal run. You know, I actually find this annoying. An annoying difference because he doesn't treat it as a normal run. In a genocide, an annoying difference because he doesn't treat it as a normal run.
Yeah, why
In
would
a
he?
genocide run, the puzzles get expedited, and Papyrus has a cheeky sense of, like, self-awareness that his puzzles are there to waste time. It's annoying because, well, obviously, the implication, but also, it feels pretty out of character
What
for Papyrus to
implication?
behave this way. Let's assume we don't know what he's like in a normal run for a second. In the genocide run, disregarding the implication, of course,
The
he's a
implication.
completely unserious loser who does not seem to have any intention towards killing you and instead convinces himself that he would rather be friends with a human. A human, I should mention, whom he knows is a murderer, or at least by reputation that humans are completely fine with killing
Camera.
monsters. If this was the only impression someone had of Papyrus, it would be
What is the
extremely
implication?
different from that of a normal run. Not that we care, of course, the implication and all that, but
The
this isn't for our sake
implication.
that I point this out. It's for his sake. Papyrus is a character who is ambitious to a fault. A character who wants so badly to be in the Royal Guard, he would literally give his life to do it. He considers
What?
being friends with the human.
Give his life?
But
What?
it's only after the human displays a general approval of how Papyrus has been treating them, and after Papyrus tried to apprehend them. Him suddenly deciding out of nowhere to just fold and be our friend, especially in this scenario, feels insulting to my intelligence.
It
and
is
his
to
integrity
my
as a character.
intelligence.
Toby wants so badly to
No.
point out the implication that he made for us. He constantly
Wait,
shows
is the
you
implication like that you need to feel bad or
shouldn't care about
something?
anything if you want to do the genocide run, because if you had any of the motivation besides being a murder hobo, you wouldn't find any. And why are you doing a genocide run? Look at how friendly and nice everyone's being, you evil bastard! If he's stuck with one or the other the whole way through, I would say it's genius, but it isn't. It comes off as sloppy, insulting, and
That's
really juvenile.
Papyrus's
Imagine for a second
character.
a scenario where Papyrus does have you actually do all the puzzles and do all the spaghetti stuff. Actually go through with all of it, make you solve all the puzzles. Suddenly, there is a plausible reason why this character, who at this point has been killing everything, there's a plausible reason for them to go like, I want to kill Papyrus. Because they're annoying.
What?
He's annoying. He's an annoying
What?
character. In an actual run, he's a really annoying character. So lean into
So you
him
just
being
hate
annoying.
Papyrus.
Lean into him being just completely unredeemably annoying and you know, I want to fight you, I can apprehend you, not knowing how much more powerful you are than Papyrus. Because when you finally get to the fight, it'll be so satisfying that this super arrogant, super annoying, super annoying bastard
What?
just gets demolished in one hit.
What?
Yes, I feel something because I killed this annoying character who's been annoying me.
What do you think Papyrus is annoying? Dude, it's not even that.
Stealing from the shop. I've never really understood what the point of doing this is besides being evil. You steal every item for free anyway, so what good is stealing money other than, oh, look at how evil and monstrous you are. But, and say it with me now, the implication doesn't have room.
Oh my god.
If I cared about stealing
Implication.
and I have justification for doing it, I wouldn't be.
Did he reply? What
This
is
mechanic would be
implication?
way more impactful if stealing was a choice in a normal run, because then the choice is no longer a mandatory consequence specifically of the genocide run. Like, let's say in a normal run, I choose to steal a honey bun from the lady that sells them, and she gets mad.
Dude, who cares?
I'm never allowed in that store again, so I can't buy healing items, and everyone in town.
It's literally just to get healing items. What do you mean?
You know, people have different dialogue or something. Better yet, maybe there's like a special item that boosts your attack or boosts your defense or something like meaningful that you can only get by stealing. And in a pacifist run where you would never even think to be mean to anybody, you're not gonna get that item, but you're curious about it. So maybe you're like, I kind of want to do a genocide run or a run where I'm just a little bit evil, and you know. You go and you steal it, and you reap the rewards from it. Suddenly, there's a reason to steal, because there's a natural correlation of being evil gets you stuff, people don't like you for it. In a genocide run, where no one is going to like you anyway because you killed them, it doesn't matter. So your reward for a genocide run becomes, look how much more powerful you are for fully committing to be evil, as opposed to just half-assing being evil. Anyway, Papyrus fight. He wants to be our friend, as I sort of spoiled earlier. He really wants to be our friend. He says, I believe in you. You can change. One hit kill.
Yeah.
And he says he believes in us, blah, 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 the implication. This is
The implication! Implication again.
The next area is the waterfall, and I could go into the exact same thing about how monsters don't instill anything, but they are...
Wait, is the implication... I think it says it about here. About the implication.
Kid or friend. The genocide run makes extensive use of this name that you entered, for reasons I'll get into towards the end, but it's this first interaction which sows the seeds of what I consider to be the biggest blunder and product of its time derogatory thing that this game does in the story. Flowey refers to you by your name and says something implying you two have met before, and that you two work. And there, ladies and gentlemen, we've been given our first taste of the edgy creepypasta that is Undertale's genocide run. Yep.
The edgy creepypasta.
That's what this is. Edgy creepypasta, early 2000s edgy creepypasta, complete with referring to the player by their name and wanting to kill everything just because I can. Horribly shallow, horribly overdone, and so painfully unoriginal compared to how masterfully the actual game is in terms of narrative. But most of all, it confirms what I've asserted already, that we, the player, are encouraged not to care about these monsters.
Oh, that's the implication, that you're not supposed to care about anything.
That we're just supposed to kill everything without thinking, because that's what we, the player, want to do, apparently. Never mind that this is supposed to be a role-playing game, and I should be role-playing as the fallen child. No. Flowey spells it out for us in some uncertain terms, these cutesy monsters, because we, the player, are evil, soulless bastards who don't care about the lives of these monsters. We continue to Snowdin. Snowdin, this entire section. It's clear he answers so badly. The answer is a mix of assertions made, skip ahead in the narrative to talk about something that's kind of crucial to the best moment in the genocide run.
The best moment.
At this point, someone who hasn't played Undertale watching this might be very confused on a point I made a while ago. how did humans beat monsters so badly? The answer is a mix of assertions made from
Yeah, that
very
implication
small
is completely
information about the
wrong.
soul and some information you learn only in the true passage.
How can you miss a point so badly
Inside every human
and make a
soul
3
are 8
hours
traits.
video
Justice, represented by yellow.
just
Kindness,
on
represented by blue.
misunderstanding to point?
Perseverance, represented by purple. Integrity, represented by blue. And determination, technically represented by red, but not officially. While each of these traits exist within all humans, each human soul has one particular trait that dominates it. Of these traits, determination is considered to be the strongest, as it allows the human soul to hold itself together even after death. Among other humans, the difference in determination is pretty minimal, especially the more humans that there are, and doesn't have much effect on anything. But among monsters, it is enormous. In some cases, particularly where a human soul is dominated by determination, a human's determination can be powerful enough that they can even turn back time to specific points where their determination was the highest. If there are multiple humans surrounded by the presence of monsters, it is the human with the higher determination who controls this particular effect. It's pretty much solely because of how powerful determination is that humans could demolish monsters. And
oh, is this for Undyne, the Undying fight?
who hides away manifest in our characters specifically. It is strongly implied that the save points are moments for our soul to speak to us, and when we have accomplished our tasks of killing every monster in an area, our soul resonates with determination. At the very end, I will express some grievance with this idea, but for now, let's get back to Waterfall. At the Waterfall, we encounter Monster Kid, who you already know the implication, blah blah blah. Nothing about Monster Kid's character changes in the genocide run.
Why would it change? Why would it?
Imagine a scenario where suddenly Monster Kid becomes smart.
Smart?
In a normal run, he's just this moron who does not understand that you're a human. But imagine, in this case, that Monster Kid is like immediately aware that you are a human and starts to like just run from you the second he sees you. There's suddenly, you know, a reason as a player to be like, yeah, I want to hunt down and kill this like named monster that I can see that's running from me. I want to.
That would be edgy, and you hate edgy.
Make them fear me. I want to kill them. I want to make them fear me. So why not make Monster Kid just this like scared kid who understands that we're a villain right from the start? They kind of.
They want to make him genocide access.
At the very end, when it's a little bit too late for that. The bridge, where we are right now. Monster Kid asks us to prove that we're not evil, and then the moment that we refuse to do so, it's too late. He goes like, oh, I'll stand and fight you because that's what Undyne would do. As much as I was just harping on this 1 second ago, I actually do really like this.
Okay.
It's the first time in the genocide
One good
we actually
take.
carry out
One good
action,
freaking
and
take.
one that makes sense to be a one-hit kill.
Cool.
I mean, surely if we can kill a boss monster like Toriel in one hit, this kid should be no threat. The scared look on his face, the phrase, in my way. It all sells for once in this entire game's runtime, unhindered by the implication that
Implication?
everything really is a commitment. Here is this child, a literal child, standing not even in our actual path. We could just walk away, but dares to defy us as the player. This surpasses the implication because it doesn't even try to
Implication.
how you should feel and just fully commits to
Stop saying the implication.
He impedes you from continuing
Yeah.
the genocide run. If there were more moments that committed like this,
There were more moments. Literally, Papyrus like 1 hour before all of this.
someone playing this
What?
one field
What do
instead
you
of how should
mean?
someone actually engaging with the story feel. I would love the genocide run as a whole. It's not just a dialogue choice to kill this kid or some off-screen animation. I want to be the one to press the attack button to time the attack, and upon doing so, okay, another tangent. I'm so sorry. A while ago, I got into an argument online with someone about whether or not the inclusion of lyrics in Undertale's soundtrack could serve to enhance its quality. With me, probably not surprisingly given the situation, taking the more controversial of the two stances, insisting that lyrics can tell the story of the soundtrack better than the soundtrack and its context can.
Has a
So,
small bit of
Lapis
sanity.
Lancer,
Like,
thank you
a
for the
small
new and
bit of
improved
sanity,
Kiwis.
but also not.
Everyone go check them out on Instagram. I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to hear my argument.
A tangent about battle against what?
I think that on the internet's rendition of Battle Against a True Hero tells the story of that song far, far better than the song in its own right, and especially in the context.
Yeah, I didn't expect a better take from this guy.
Waterfall, but this time brought to the forefront and performed faster. Not rhythmically faster, lyrically faster. It gets
lyrically
to the idea,
faster.
the conclusion of the thought faster, as if implying that there's strength, there's bravado, passion. What are the ideals of war?
That was just analyzing Man of the Internet's lyrics. Why? Yeah, you don't
Then,
need
just
to.
as suddenly as the first part of this idea began, a new voice.
Dude, what? Almost 10 minutes of this.
But I
Triumph
say I'm
and
from
victory and
Germany.
creation.
What? I say I'm from Germany, and then he's like, yeah, oh.
Bro, what is this guy on about?
Conveyed in some more poetic way.
In some more poetic way, gosh. Yeah, back to regular
Are
count.
you high?
Hotland is all the same, except no Alphys, and Mettaton is curt about getting the show on the road.
He's glazing Undertale yellow. He's glazing Man of the Internet, but he's absolutely bashing on Undertale's genocide.
Especially considering that you need to kill 40 monsters in this zone. This is the zone I was referring to in the gameplay section, where I said it could take up to 2 hours if you're unlucky.
Yeah.
This to be in the last
He's
area of the
saying
game just
half of
solidifies
Germany
my
is
belief in the
friends.
existence of the implication, because the
So
only reason I
what
would
is
care to
he
do
on
this
about?
mind-numbingly boring task would be if I already made up my mind that I was just gonna do the genocide run, for no other reason. It isn't fun,
Yeah.
it isn't
It isn't fun?
it's
Yeah, it
actually
isn't. It doesn't add
It's
anything to the
just
story.
annoying to do.
Well, it does, kind of.
Finally get to Mettaton, whatever, and
Yeah, it's just annoying to do because
really
that's
underwhelming,
how you.
intentionally so, because it's technically a fake out for the
A fake
actual
out.
real final boss.
Well, I wonder what he will say.
Better job of telling a
What the
story with
fuck is
Mettaton
on
and the
about?
genocide.
Oh my god, can you shut the fuck up for 1 fucking second? Dude, what do you mean? Mettaton Neo doesn't even get a freaking fight. Why would you? Why do you think?
Monsters would tell us the story of the
Dude.
first child and what happened to them. In this case, Flowey tells us the other side of the story. For the sake of cohesion, I'll tell both sides to you now, but understand that you wouldn't get the full story unless you played both of them.
Is he going to just recap all of the story?
Asgore and the human child were the back
Yeah, he's going to retell
humans
all of
attacked
the
Asgore,
story.
who refused to fight back, instead placing the human supplant the remains of his soul and to live at all. Intent on taking his own life, he, after a while, thing that he raised and kill or be killed.
Okay.
This Flowey conversation all but confirms my suspicions about Toby Fox's intended design philosophy. That being, in order to do the genocide run, we should already have known what happens in the pacifist run. I think the design philosophy is horribly flawed.
What?
Game design. That is true. Not even that bad of a game design. It's really
Yeah.
intentional and actually does the job well.
Yeah, it's intentional. Like if you do pacifist before genocide, like genocide, you do it. A player will usually do it after playing the other routes in the game, because like the average player wouldn't just do genocide. They'd want to see something new. Yeah, they want to see everything the game has to offer. So like that's why they will do it. So like
the implication, and he even admits to this philosophy by having Flowey say the thing about I didn't want to do it, but I had to know, as if that's some kind of justifiable reason.
Dude, that's the reason.
Not a justifiable reason to do the genocide. And even if it were, nobody's curiosity is so strong that it transcends their decency and common sense to change paths at the dozens of times throughout the game that it
Why are you bashing on Flowey?
loses what little goodwill I had for him and his ability to tell a compelling story, because all he proves here is that he doesn't believe his own teachings. Flowey is a nihilist, the cringiest, edgiest, most juvenile kind of villain to write, because his motivation is founded on the most cursory, surface-level observations on the world.
Oh my god, what?
any
Oh my
Taurina
god,
who has
what
ever had a
is
bad
this
day
guy?
of
Okay,
breath.
like I said,
Nothing matters, so I should
girl
just kill
does
things
not
to see
know
what
the
happens.
meaning
Whoa,
of
well, that's so
sentence.
quirky and weird. What a
Yeah.
pitiful and lame motivation for this main voice of the antagonist to take. And I'm sure that this isn't some underlying message about the dangers of nihilism or something, because it's never addressed. It's not like Flowey's nihilism is addressed in any
He's
of the
so
games and pointed
fucking
out as being problematic.
ridiculous.
He's just a nihilist who, like all nihilists, crumbles as soon as their own life is threatened by us in that exact conversation.
Yeah.
And another thing on how lame a villain Flowey is in
What?
the genocide run, he claims to not feel anything, and yet he is capable of feeling fear and sadness.
Yeah,
In his
because
own
he
story, he says
really
he feels
doesn't want to
fear and
feel
sadness.
anything,
So either
and
his
like
soul
he's
isn't
convinced he
something
can't
to
feel
prevent him from having
anything.
emotions, or, and this is what I believe is actually true in the situation, he does have a soul, and he's just using the excuse of not having a soul to justify the horrible nihilistic things he's doing. And don't give me that,
Bro
but
wants
Kiwi,
to
he's just a
force
kid. He
nihilism
couldn't be
into
expected to know how to deal with depression, because that implies a kid
No,
with
he just
immortality and depression
this
would
guy.
rationally choose to
I
be a
don't.
psychopath,
It's
loser, nihilist,
he's
and
so
not
weird.
literally anything
I
else. The thing is, I, the player, would know that Flowey is Asriel if I played the pacifist run.
yeah, you
So
would
if I
know.
should have played the pacifist run first to get the full story, the implication.
This guy's projecting.
So
I'm
why
sure.
even have him give me this sob story? All it does is deflate the little bit of goodwill I had for this character that was compelling in the genocide run. The genocide route was the chance for Flowey's first interaction to redeem itself. Let's do a rewrite of Flowey real quick. After Flowey becomes a flower, he finds out that his body begins to deteriorate unless he absorbs monster souls every so often. Instead of needing food or whatever else, he
Oh,
has to
he's
have
writing a
monster
garbage.
soul
He's
consumed
writing a
by
garbage.
how else would he
Backstory
get
for
monster souls
Flowey.
except by killing people?
Don't let him cook.
Is the
Get him the hell away from the kitchen. Get him away from there.
still pulsates somewhere inside of him and makes him.
You cannot cook. Please get away from the kitchen, or we will have to use brute force.
Is terrified of this and doesn't want to be around people that he loves because he's afraid that he would lash out and kill them.
Lash out
That's why
and
he
kill
runs away
them.
from Asgore. He's afraid that he might kill Asgore, and he runs away to the ruins, considering that's probably the place where there's the fewest amount of things and the most dead monsters. If he can find any monsters clinging to life, they'd probably be at the ruins, and maybe he can sustain himself there. But it's there that he finds Toriel, where he gets even more distressed, because not only is this another person he cares about, but this is the place where he died. This is the flower bed where he was laid and buried. This trauma is enough to just completely send him into a spiral where he doesn't want to live anymore. He intentionally starves himself, waiting at the flower bed.
How
for
is
something
not
to happen
feeling
until
anything?
eventually his body falls apart. But when his
Not a
monster
good
soul
reason.
fails, the remnants of the human soul that merged with his in the last moments that he absorbed it sparks and sends him back into where he was at the moment that his determination was the highest. Flowey now realizes the horrible hell that he's found himself
Horrible
in.
hell.
That this bad part of him, this human determination, is the thing that's keeping him alive. It won't let him die. He has to kill things. It is literally kill or be killed. So, he goes around. He tries his best to help anybody that he can, because the alternative is he's just gonna go on a murderous rampage.
This is terrible.
Stop himself from doing so. But no matter
The
what
worst
he chooses to do, he wakes up
fan-made
after he either starves himself
Flowey backstory
chooses to die
ever.
alone. He wakes
Dude.
up all the same and has to do everything all over again. The same conversations, the same places, the same things, the same actions. He reads every book. He burns every book. He does everything that he possibly can, and nothing satiates him. The only solace he can find in the entire situation is that whenever he gives in to these determined impulses, he has some control over when and how they fire, meaning he can choose specific moments to load back into. Meaning he could do some good and then give into the impulses and then save, so that at least that little bit of good that he did before was saved before he goes and kills. Unfortunately, the more that he gives into them...
Oh my god, stop writing your fanfic, little bro. It's not Kanan.
This human, this monster, and now impulse instead of him.
Stop writing this garbage.
Kill things. He craves blood, but he does not want to. And meanwhile, us, the player, since we're going by the rules of the implication, where we're not even concerned about what the fallen child is actually thinking, we, the player, embrace the exact opposite mindset. We don't need to kill these monsters. We could beat the entire game not killing a single thing.
Yeah.
But we're doing it because we want funny number to go up. We
What?
want the blood. We want to absorb souls to become stronger.
Episode.
And by admitting that, we completely circumvent the implication. It's no longer about the fallen child. The fallen child might as well not exist. Flowey speaking directly to us beyond the screen, not even looking at the fallen child. Or rather, looking through the fallen child at us. That's what needed to happen. Instead, Flowey is talking to the fallen child, and then we're like in the fallen child's head going, this doesn't apply to me. What are you talking about? The challenge of making a genocide run in a game where I can choose
That's for Flowey's character?
is justifying
What do you
I would
mean?
choose extreme evil. Because there are tons of reasons to
Reasons to do pacifist run, better story, better music, funny characters. Because the characters in Genocide Run are just sense. A more complete narrative, a narrative that actually makes sense. Because obviously Flowey doesn't make sense. His backstory is terrible, honestly. Very little, if any, fourth wall breaking. Sense is just a comedic. Sense is just a comedic relief. Sense is just a comedic relief. This guy.
Bro.
Papyrus is a character that makes sense. Tammy Armor. Why do you think Tammy Armor is so important? All of the extra content is accessible in this route. You get to save Asgore and get to good ending with all your friends. All of the towns have funny NPCs to talk to. You have less health, so the game is harder. What do you mean the game is harder? Genocide route is way harder than pacifist or neutral. Frogs at the end of the game. The ending credits are nice. The final boss is really cool. The true lab is interesting. It makes more sense to roleplay. To roleplay. He's so fixated on roleplaying. He's so fixated on that. Reasons to do Genocide Run. Sense. Yeah, it's only about sense. Oh, those youngsters, they only care about sense. They only care about sense. It's so ass. It's so ass. It's so ass.
extreme good. We've evolved the roleplay business.
This is so.
Harping on how important roleplay is. The reason I actually want to do a true pacifist run isn't because I want to roleplay Frisk as a noble person who wants to save all of Monster Kind. It's because I want Flowey to be happy. I want to solve Flowey's problem.
Why do you think?
The main face of all of the problems in the Undertale. I want to solve. I want Flowey to turn back into Asriel and be happy. So imagine in those
Was Amalgam ever that good? He's kind of fire.
The implication has such a tight grip.
The implication.
You weren't even thinking about what you were doing. You were just going and killing stuff because you're not supposed to care. But in those last moments, suddenly
you're supposed to
that
care.
in doing this horrible thing, you're actually accidentally doing something good. But
What?
it's too late, because by the time that you've finished and you reach 20 LV, you'll have no choice but to kill Flowey. Because the same impulses that were taking hold of Flowey have finally taken root into you. And the first thing that they'll have you do is kill Flowey. But no, Flowey is a joke of a character.
Is a joke of a character.
His motivations are that of an edgy 2010s internet user in the postmodern, post-irony era of the internet, where people casually made jokes about their depression and killing themselves. Back in the day, I knew tons of people in high school who ran in that crowd who were awed by how real and deep the genocide run actually was, because it was all a metaphor for depression or whatever. But no, it sucks. It's lazy and it's bad writing.
It's lazy and it's
Speaking
bad.
of lazy, It's time to talk about Sans Undertale.
Don't talk about us in this Undertale. People, why? Yeah, people, the kids always talk about Sans Undertale and they only care about
secretly a really intelligent guy. All of it. Overrated.
secret.
Overhyped. Not as good as Undyne, not as good as Mettaton, not as good as Papyrus. Sans Undertale is not as good as everyone gives him credit for. It's not to say he's bad necessarily.
What?
Clearly, this
He's
was
not
the
as good
character
as
that
him.
Toby Fox put the most care and passion into making. He set Sans up from the beginning to be this impossible secret boss who you weren't supposed to see coming because in the pacifist run, he doesn't do anything and he keeps making ominous threats he doesn't put out. Well, here you go. Here's his chance to put out. Whoa, that's crazy. He can dodge, just like you. Whoa, he has only one attack and one defense, and his check thing says he only does 1 damage. Whoa, he can attack even though it's your turn. All of these are gimmicks at best, and it's at least respectful that these gimmicks only appear at Sans' fight, but it's all just way too much and
Way too much?
In a normal run, Sans uses this time to break the meta by explaining that here in the underground, there are these arbitrary stats that all monsters have called Level of Violence, LV, which represents your ability to cause pain in others, and Execution Points, EXP, which represents how much pain you have caused in others. It's a tongue-in-cheek way to explain these RPG terms as they exist in the game, and in a pacifist run is a welcome little jab. In the genocide run, he doesn't tell you any of this.
Yeah, why would he?
No, but it would have been nice to know why I was one-shotting all of those bosses before. If my LV is high enough, my threshold to cause pain to others is very, very high. The more that I want to cause pain to them, the more pain I will cause, and therefore explains why the fallen child, not me,
Do you really need an explanation?
kill
Like, what changes? Really, what changes?
boss monster in 1 hit. This revelation is never spelled out for us and has to be inferred, but the implication. For me to know how EXP and LV work would have required me to know that they were a bad thing. So the shock of finding out is wasted on a run that I would never have accumulated any EXP or LV. Instead, the conversation that Sans has with you is a fake out. He is about to say the thing that he wants to say in the pacifist route, and then he goes, never mind, you want to have a bad time, because if you take 1 more step forward, you're really not going to like what happens next. Oh, sorry, Toriel, I'm going to kill this kid. Megalovania as a song is overrated. I think it's too busy to be really meaningful and too contextually messy to analyze at the level of battle against a true hero. What I mean by contextually messy is, Sans will not stop yapping during the actual fight. I know. Rich coming from me, the king of yapping.
Yeah, rich coming from you, the king of undeserving yapping. Yeah, rich coming from you indeed.
Serious. The whole fight, Sans is going on and on about some cryptic ARG type shit about how I can't go back home. We've been seeing time anomalies. That's your fault, isn't it? That stuff that he's saying isn't even really interesting in its own right.
What do you
Nothing he's saying has any impact on the story as we know, or on the
Yeah, but it has got impact on his character, on the world. Like, what?
All that it does is raise more questions that we can just assume.
Yeah, it raises more questions, so you, like,
Will never
you're
get the
more...
answers to, because no matter what, we have to kill Sans to progress. He has some funny moments or whatever where he makes
Funny
a joke,
moment?
but
What?
that's all it is.
That's all it is. He's got some funny moments, but yeah, that's it. Honestly, that's it. He's got some funny moments, but that's all.
Up to be some crazy
That
drama.
people hype up. He's got some funny jokes that people hype up.
Amazing secret boss. Oh, what if he's Ness? What if he's Gaster? Whoa, Gaster! Did you know the laser attack that he has called like Gaster Blaster? Whoa, Gaster! Like the font, and he's Sans and Papyrus. Whoa! Alright, intermission. I realized looking back at the script that I don't actually explain what my, like, problem is with the Sans fight. I just go on this rant about how I...
Yeah, you just go on this rant. So...
Sans reeks of Toby Fox trying to be Cave Story. If you don't know, Cave Story is kind of like...
What do you mean, Christ?
Is known for is its kind of wacky story. There's a lot of things that aren't entirely explained in its story. Things that you kind of see and let your imagination fill in the gaps.
I think I should
Or if they are explained,
play
they're
Cave
explained
Story
in a way that
eventually.
feels very mythical. And nowhere else
But
is
what the
this
hell?
quirky storytelling apparent than in the best ending of the game, the secret ending, where you go into the bowels of the island and fight Balos, the guy who's like in charge of everything that's been happening. As you make your way to Balos, you get bits and pieces of who he is and what his connection is to everything that's going on, but none of it is outright explained to you. None of it is really laid out for you in a way that anyone could just be like, oh yeah, obviously this is what it is. All culminating to this moment when you finally get to him after fighting through literal hell to get to him. There's this moment of like awe that, whoa, I'm meeting this guy that no one knows anything about, and it's this like ultimate final battle to the death. This person that just
That's
showed up,
Asgore.
this villain, this bad guy who's in control of everything secretly, who's behind everything, and now I get this moment to fight him, and even after you kill him, you're still left with questions. You're left with what was all that about? But that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a mystery. It was your reward for being curious and looking around and finding out these things, finding these bits and pieces of lore about this mysterious person that you're up against. Sans feels like someone looked at the blueprint of this idea that a secret boss has to be very mysterious.
Literally.
Looked at that.
He's not a secret boss.
Okay, so I get it, I see. The way that you execute this is you make a guy who you don't expect to be the bad guy. Sans being a secret boss doesn't feel earned from any perspective, whether you look at it from the implication or from the actual...
What do you mean it doesn't feel earned? What about all the other routes? What about...
It just doesn't feel
What about him being literally the last one? Last main character.
Just feels desperate.
Pretty
He
much.
feels so desperate to be like, oh, but look, it's justified. Look, he's saying all this stuff that you didn't know. He's introducing a mystery to you. Isn't that worth going through all of this to do the genocide run? And then there's Megalovania, a song that Toby Fox has used for his other projects in the past for secret bosses. It just doesn't feel like it was made.
He's not a
It doesn't
fucking
feel like
secret
it
boss.
fit this
He's
scenario.
not a
It
secret boss.
just feels like a cool song that you put on a cool secret boss.
Whatever.
Nothing about this situation feels tailored to Undertale. It's just someone looked at what worked for indie pixel games, for what works for indie pixel games secret bosses, and said, do all of that. Make a mysterious, unassuming guy who you wouldn't expect. Suddenly you have to fight him, you have to go through hell to get to him, and he has this cool music, and that's it. And then he has like, he dies. I would even be happy if they switched Undyne and Sans. I
What?
would be fine with Sans. If Sans happened immediately after you killed Papyrus, and then as you're going to the Waterfall, Sans stops.
He wants
It's
Phantom
like, hey,
Sans.
I don't like that you killed Papyrus. I'm gonna fight you now. I'd be happy with it. I'd be like, oh, cool. That's a cool way for Sans to be introduced, and then the final battle being against Undyne is a perfect way to end.
Just say you like Undyne more.
It ends with that emotional moment of I am morally superior.
Wait,
to my
actually, Undyne getting swapped with Sans into genocide route, like your boss placement, is actually a pretty cool idea. Like for a fan game, it could work. I think it's interesting. Like Undyne as the final enemy. Yeah, that could be really interesting as a fan game.
Well, that kind of happened. That was like a weird, difficult boss fight that had nothing to do with the game that I'm playing. Because by the implication,
That has nothing to do with the game.
Always made consciously aware that I am playing a video game. Whatever. I'm done talking about him. We kill Sans. Good. And finally,
Good.
we're at the end of our journey. We get to Asgore, who, like in the pacifist and neutral ending, is
If you're going to
unexpectedly
complain
unassuming, but
about
the implication takes no prisoners.
the
You fight Asgore, and then, Flowey kills him. Big surprise. And then, suddenly Flowey cares and cries and gets Azrael's face.
What do you mean suddenly care?
Die. In the rewrite that I would have had, killing Flowey
I don't
would have
care
been
about your
because
stupid
there was a
rewrite.
reason
It's
that
terrible.
the player would not have
I
wanted
don't
to kill him,
care.
and yet our actions have already caused him to be
I don't
fated to
care
die
about
by
your
the
fan
actions of the
fiction.
character. But, since this
Because of
is
the
genocide
implication.
run as it's written, the implication takes no prisoners, Flowey dies, who cares? This exact thing is what I've meant every time that I've said the implication. What is the point of even having
His
Flowey do this if at
implications are
this point we shouldn't even care?
What? Implication?
care about it. Why even bother doing that when
it's about like you are not supposed to care about them. You're not supposed to care.
Kill Asgore, the end. You know, it could have just been, oh, congratulations, you killed everything, the end. Why bother having Flowey cry other than to make him more pathetic? I don't care that he's doing this. I have no sympathy for him. This could have been an opportunity to make me suddenly feel something. But they didn't. And now we get the true ending of the genocide run. As I'm sure you might have surmised by now, turns out the child we were playing as was not actually the fallen child, and instead, the child we named at the start was Asriel's friend, the one from the story who poisoned themselves. It was their determination that we were using, and our residual determination was keeping their soul alive. And it's a creepypasta, so their eyes are bleeding.
It's a creepypasta. You keep saying it's a creepypasta. It's not.
Behind the screen, and everyone's bad and should die. And at this point, you know, this is why I must have come here, so I better just go with it. And it's a jump scare.
It's not Sonic.exe, bro.
Look,
it's not a Sonic.exe exactly.
What? The moment it was born, and to its credit, Undertale did this in the medium of video games, to my knowledge, before any others. Definitely before Doki Doki Literature Club and the 100 other games after it that also did the exact same thing.
Oh my god.
For whatever reason, I can tolerate those games and their use of creepypasta much more than I can tolerate Undertale's. It's just such a jarring and anticlimactic way to end this story. And if that was
it's such an. What do you mean it's anticlimactic? How?
All of Undertale, that the whole time the character that we're playing is actually, you know, being puppeted by this edgy, creepy, positive child who bleeds out of their eyes and does a jump scare. Why? Why put all of your chips on making it a shitty creepypasta? Why not that the true villain of the story? Finally, to a point that I wanted to make a long time ago when I was talking about the genocide run requiring quote-unquote determination. What the hell is determination? Like, how is it defined in the scope of the genocide run? What's the difference between determination, the red soul, and perseverance, the purple soul? Why is it called determination to want to kill everyone? What, just because I want to continue to kill stuff, I'm determined?
Yeah.
How can determination be both positive and negative? I guess...
What do you mean how it can be both positive and negative? Do you know what determination means?
Be determined to be good or determined to be bad, but then why don't monsters have that? You're telling me Papyrus wasn't determined? Or Sans? Is evil determination somehow stronger than good? And
evil determination is stronger than good. What?
So undefined. Intentionally so, perhaps.
It is just making up stuff now.
For example, if in this last moment the fallen child decided to explain to us what
16
determination was as the ability to pursue a desired end, then I guess it would make sense that monsters don't get determination because it's not something they would need to have. Monsters live forever, or at least a very long time, so they wouldn't have the same need as humans do to have an end in their lifetime. Their lifetimes are infinite, which is why humans who have very short temporal lives would need to have determination. Papyrus has a goal that he wants, but it isn't necessarily an end. He doesn't know what
determination is more of a physical
looks like, and therefore
thing.
His dedication to being a royal guard can't be called determination. Undyne didn't have determination. She had a goal to kill the human, but it wasn't until her artificial determination kicked in that suddenly she now
artificial determination? He's using the theory, Theoda's theory from like 2016 of Undyne actually injecting determination into herself. Oh god, this is so stupid.
What should have been a very serious and remorseful and
the other part of the video is just about
ending to one of the three endings of this game ends up feeling really goofy and silly because creepypasta.
Because of the creepypasta, guys. The creepypasta, guys. Wait, I'm going to ask camera if the Undertale part worth it, worth watching. Human, I remember your implications. The implications, guys.
Kind of ruins the other two endings, because if after you've done a genocide run and reset the world, and then do a pacifist run, it goes, oh, by the way, the fallen child was still inside of Frisk and kills everybody after, so it doesn't even matter. And you might argue that that is when the events of the genocide run are actually brought into me caring, but no, that's stupid.
What?
If anything, I should be applying the implication to everything at that point.
The implication
It
to
doesn't matter if the fallen child is in me, whether I do a genocide run or not, then who cares? I shouldn't care about anything that goes on in any of the runs, which is certainly not the story that Toby Fox wanted to tell. That inclusion is very obviously Toby Fox going, oh yeah, do you regret doing the genocide run? And you know what, Toby? Yeah, I do regret doing the genocide run. Not because I'm a terrible person or because I don't like how it has affected the characters in this game, because it was boring and a waste of time. Of course, I didn't think any of this at the time. When I first
when you had a brain.
Years ago to impress that girl in
Wait. He's going to tell the story. Wait. Hold the hell up. Open your ears, guys. Open your ears.
When I first played Undertale all those years ago to impress that girl in my science class who then told me she wasn't into guys and then went on to date a different girl who I had tried to woo but was also lesbian, I thought, oh wow, that was kind of cool. And that was pretty much where I left the genocide run, because
Without the kid. He just starts talking about that, how the girl turned out to be a lesbian.
mostly just engaged with Undertale.
And got rejected.
I should mention, though I'm not going to go into any depth about it here, the genocide run of that game fixes some
Copium, digital copium, digital video.
Before we get too far into Undertale Yellow, it's only fair that I address the elephant in the room that makes it very difficult to judge a classic like Undertale against this fairly. Undertale Yellow is a fan game based on Undertale, meaning it's highly unlikely that someone would just stumble upon Yellow without first having played, enjoyed, and understood the nuances of Undertale to some extent. Meaning that the heavy
nuances
of defining what is an Undertale game has already been done, which automatically allows Yellow to innovate freely in some directions because there was not the risk that people might not like this and not be interested.
So like now he's going to yap about Undertale Yellow for
with all the myriad of other Undertale fan content.
How oversaturated the market. We're selling fan games on the market.
Varying in quality from garbage to decent. So if Yellow didn't try
garbage
to be good
to
and unique, it wouldn't have succeeded at all in standing out from the crowd. In that respect, I think Yellow had more to prove than Undertale did, and therefore its changes and innovations are valid in their own right.
What the?
With all that being said, let's get into the story of Undertale Yellow's.
Every Undertale Yellow glazer is a gay furry.
Are you a gay furry?
This person is probably a gay furry. Now it's going to get really boring probably, so I'll do something as I listen to it.
Differences that make a massive difference to things moving forward. But it's the same principle. Long ago there was a war, but the humans won, locked the monsters away underneath a mountain, the entire underground. The difference is in three key pieces of knowledge that we, and presumably the main character, knows. 1. Their king was peaceful, but eventually declared that any humans that come down there would die. 2. There have already been a few humans to venture to the mountains, but they never returned. And 3. This child did not fall, but instead willingly traveled down into the mountain with intent on finding those missing children. Unlike Undertale, that child has a name. That child's name is
Clover.
So already we're off to a fantastic start, and for a few reasons. Starting with, we are no longer the character anymore. Finally, there's role-playing in my team.
There's role-playing! He keeps yapping about role-playing. Why do you care so much about role-playing?
Go role-play on Roblox or something if you care about role-playing.
Yeah.
RPGs are different from role-play games. I mean,
And the
RPG
character
stands
that
for
we're
role-playing
role-playing has
game.
Yeah.
information, has background knowledge.
But like he criticized Undertale's genocide for not including enough roleplay because he thinks the player is controlling Frisk and you're supposed to know.
For
Like
reasons
Wait,
he wouldn't
the
know,
name of
but
the
we the
video is
player
called
do,
Undertale
means that there is a
Genocide.
plausible reason for
Undertale,
Clover
this
to
is
either
Undertale.
choose pacifism or genocide. All this cowboy
Undertale,
hat wearing
what?
kid knows about monsters is
I
that there
don't
was
know.
a war and that the king of monsters wants all humans dead. So we can view this in a few ways. The first way we can look at this is that he doesn't think the stories are even true, but brings a gun with him anyway to scare off coyotes or whatever else he might reasonably think is down there. Second, we might assume that he does think there are monsters and intends to bring the gun for self-defense or to shoot his way through to find the kids.
Yeah, it does, but he
Lastly, we might
really
assume that he
cares
doesn't
though.
believe any of this and just wants to pretend to be a cowboy in the mountains. So he brings his toy gun and shoots rocks or whatever. Whichever way you want to roleplay your Clover, there is plenty of room to extrapolate and justify what would start
Genius.
in the first place.
Roleplay your Clover. Continue create your Frisk. Roleplay your Clover.
As in Undertale, though instead of being on their back like in Undertale,
Why does this only have 2 likes?
did not fall, but instead
That's absurdly low
the only thing with them is toy gun,
for
his
392
and the poster of the missing
views. Wait. I'm going to call. Hey, how was it called? Dislikes shower.
Stream.
YouTube. Return dislikes.
Well, I mean, it's a video criticizing Undertale. It's gonna get heavily disliked, anyways.
Yeah. No matter what. Even if the points are actually
Even if the
pretty
points are
good.
valid,
We're bringing it back.
Yeah.
We're bringing it back.
He looks at
What
reminds
do you
him
mean?
of the
You can't
justice that
criticize my favorite game ever!
fuck your game.
Okay.
justify
Free
what started it in the first place.
2 likes and 3 dislikes, including me.
Instead of being
I
I
can.
like how there's more
in
dislikes.
Undertale, Clover came
This
down
likes
here
only
on
count if
purpose,
they
did
agree
not
with me.
fall, but instead jumped down here. The only thing with him is toy gun, his worn hat,
Furry
and the poster of the missing
exterminated,
children,
returning
which,
to
when he
base
looks at,
crew.
reminds him
He
of
has
the
been
justice
owned
that
by
needs to be
base guy
dispensed in this
himself.
place. In the first room over, we encounter a frogget. First proof to Clover that monsters do in fact exist, and Clover decides to attack it, to scare it off, or to see if it's even real.
Clover decides to attack it. No, you decide to
Regardless,
attack it.
he doesn't get a chance to kill it because
Like-
a bigger
You're talking
monster
about
comes and
roleplay,
scares it
you're
off.
saying that
This
your
monster
Clover
introduces
decides
herself
to
as Toriel
All
and does
right.
seem to want to hurt Clover.
Yeah,
Also
oh,
implying that
yeah,
she
yeah,
has
yeah. What am I
seen the
drawing?
other children fall down here. Clover, despite what we, the player, eventually want to do, doesn't have any innate bloodlust and is probably a well-mannered Western gentleman, so he obliges her as she intends to bring him to her home, where he will eventually ask her some questions about the others, or just hopefully find them there. By the way, I can already foresee the seething, coping, and molding of Undertale genocide lovers in the comments, saying things like, wow, you're really biased because you're actually going into the nuances of the storytelling in this one. Undertale has nuanced storytelling in its genocide run, how come you didn't give it this treatment? The difference is that Clover is an
you
actual
go on this for
character
2 more hours.
Clover
you
is an
can't be
actor.
talking.
Oh my
that way,
god.
he actually has the ability to exchange information with me as the player, as I was
What?
discussing earlier.
What do you
When
mean?
we get to
Further, this
Toriel
video
as
is about
Clover,
genocide,
we have
like
tons of
actual
things that we can
Undertale
imagine Clover might be thinking. But regardless of what we, the player, want Clover to do, Clover decides to follow Toriel. And there are loads of moments later where Clover does things without us wanting him to. By the time we see Toriel in Undertale, we've already made up our minds as the player to do the genocide run, and because, you know, the implication, what Frisk wants or what the fallen child want doesn't matter, because it's not gonna matter later down the line. Even if we decide to play through all of Undertale Yellow's genocide run with the same mentality as in Undertale's genocide run, that being, I'm just playing a game, I just want to see number go up, I don't care about any of these characters. Clover still cares about these characters, and so even as we're puppeting Clover around, how Clover reacts to this thing that he might not want to do suddenly becomes important because he has a will and character of his own. And with this will and character comes the ability to actually put impact on these decisions that we, the player, are making. And how are those impacts explored? by the plot and by the narrative and by how we can infer Clover is feeling about the situation. So if you want me to give the same treatment to Undertale's genocide run, you better have a compelling argument for why the implication doesn't exist. Anyway,
So this guy just
Clover
hates
follows her
blank slate
instructions.
characters, like, for example, Gordon Freeman from Half-Life. Like, blank slate characters with no story, so that just means bad writing. That's a horrible
Does
argument.
he hate Link from Legend of Zelda?
Camera
hate
says
Zelda
it is
more than
not worth it.
Once.
You hate the Pokemon trainer?
Yes.
I bet my
This
bro
is so
hates
sad.
Link. I bet he hates
Bro
Link from The
hates-
Legend of Zelda.
Bro hates any character that doesn't have a backstory because
Yeah.
it's not roleplay. It's not roleplay worth.
I mean,
It's not Roblox roleplay worth it. Sorry,
He solves
guys.
her puzzle
Yeah, I
until
can't-
disaster
I
strikes.
can't
He's
change
separated
skins,
from her,
I can't
dropped into
change- I
darkness where he
can't-
calls out to wait for
I
her to
can't.
help him out. He reasons, however, that it might just be
I
faster to
like
find a
to
way
keep
up.
that
After all, if there's a basement, there must be stairs to it somewhere. So he travels deeper into the ruins, wondering what he might find. A dusty and ominous hallway awaits him, and at the end, a flower with a face speaks to him. The underground surely is a strange, almost whimsical place, unlike anything that Clover would have ever known above.
Huh.
The flower introduces himself
Oh.
as Flowey.
As Flowey, yeah.
who, recognizing you are likely split off from Toriel, offers to teach you how things work down here. It should be noted
Oh,
that
well.
in contrast to how
If it's
Undertale
not worth it,
presents Flowey as
I
innocently
don't think I'll
ominous,
stream it.
and by betraying
What I need to
Yellow
go for it.
presents him as wholly whimsical. Maybe not necessarily truthful or good, per se.
I may make a video